أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، حمدا كثيرا طيبا طاهرا مباركا فيه، وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا، وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان، واجعلنا من عبادك الراشدين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا، وزدنا من لدنك علما نافعا يا أرحم الراحمين. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, peace and blessings be upon His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll be beginning today the lessons of the fiqh of purification and salat, how to perfect one's purification and salat, both physically and spiritually as well, to be able to obtain the best and the most rewards that one can from these two great actions that a lot of the times a lot of us sort of misunderstand or don't give much importance to them as they should, especially when it comes to purification and when it comes to salat, for these are the two most repeated actions that the person does in the day-to-day life as a believer. Now the meaning of fiqh and to study the fiqh of purification and salat, the intention is to try and perfect and to make sure that we are not doing anything wrong when it comes to our purification and when it comes to our salat. When we make wudu, and not only wudu, purification is much broader than wudu. Wudu is a part of purification. Purification begins with the types of water that are allowed to use to purify oneself with. Purification involves what is considered as impure, as najis, what is considered as pure. Purification involves what is allowed, or what are the sunan of wudu, what are the obligatory actions of wudu, what are the nullifiers of wudu, what are the conditions and obligations within wudu itself, and the many other things that are mentioned within the topic of purification, wiping over the socks, wiping over the khuf, wiping over bandages, and all of these matters are included in the topic of purification. Now, the link between tahara and wudu is a link that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned those who purify themselves, or mentioned those who do wudu as being those who purify themselves. And purification is not limited to physical purification, meaning that when the person makes wudu and it is called tahara, it is called purification, it is not limited to only the purification and the cleansing of the limbs. The purification and the cleansing of the limbs. Al-Imam Ibn Qudamah rahimahullah ta'ala, in his famous book Mukhtasar Minhaj al-Qasidin, he says that there's different stages and different types of purification, or different levels of purification. He says the first level of purification is those who focus on washing the limbs, and they do not give any focus to the purification of the heart, which is the intended meaning of tahara. So when we are making tahara, when we are purifying, when we are doing these acts of purification, it's not just a matter of washing one's limbs, the hands, the face, the head, the legs, and the conditions that come with them, but it's a purification of the heart, it's a purification of the body from the sins. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he gives the example. He says, imagine a man had a flowing river in front of his house, and from that flowing river he washes himself, he cleanses himself every day 5 times. He washes himself, cleanses himself every day 5 times. Will that person have any dirt on them at the end of the day? Will their hands be dirty, their feet, their face, their hair and so forth? Would it be dirty at the end of the day? The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they said, no, O Rasulullah. He said that is the example of the tahara in the salat. It cleanses the person, it cleanses their soul, and it cleanses them from the dirt of this dunya. Both the physical dirt and the metaphorical najasa of this dunya, the effects that it has on the body. And the reason that the ulama, they begin with tahara and with salat itself, or they put tahara before salat, it's because tahara is a condition for the acceptance of salat. Meaning, if one's purification is not complete, it means that their salat is not going to be complete. So it is only logical that the condition is mentioned before the action itself. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he says, Miftahu salat at-tahur. The key to salat is what? At-tahur, the tahara, the purification. And its opening is with takbir, and its ending is with taslim. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he mentions in the other hadith, he says, لا يقبل الله صلاة أحدكم من غير طهور. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept the prayer of anyone without tahara, without purification. And purification here is in its broad meaning, meaning that from the conditions of salat is that the person has to be on wudu. Also is that the person has to be free from any impurity on their body. Free from any impurity on their body. This is also under tahara. So what is considered as pure, what is considered as impure, and so forth. So the key to salat is what? Is purification. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He praised the Ansar due to their actions of purification. Due to the actions of what? Of purification. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned that He loves the ones who purify themselves. Inna Allah yuhibbu at-tawwabin wa yuhibbu al-mutatahhirin. Allah, He loves those who repent, at-tawwabin, and He loves those who purify themselves. He loves those who purify themselves. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he went past the two graves, the famous hadith, he went past the two graves and he placed two pieces or two branches of a tree, and he put them on each grave, and he said in the hadith, he said, إِنَّهُمَا لَيُعَذَّبَانِ وَمَا يُعَذَّبَانِ فِي كَبِيرٍ وَإِنَّهُ لَكَبِيرٌ. He said, verily they are being punished in their grave, and they are not being punished for something that you might see as big, but verily it is big. He said, أَمَّا أَحَدُهُمَا فَكَانَ لَا يَسْتَنْزِهُ مِنَ الْبَوْلِ. He says, as for one of them, he didn't used to clean themselves after urinating or after fulfilling the call of nature, as they say. He didn't used to clean, they didn't used to clean themselves. So they are being punished for it in what? In the grave. وَأَمَّا الْآخَرْ فَكَانَ يَمْشِي بِالنَّمِيمَةِ. As for the other one, he used to walk around spreading rumors, and namima. Spreading rumors and spreading, making trouble between people. In the other hadith, the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, إِنَّ عَامَّةُ عَذَابِ الْقَبْرِ, that the general punishment of the grave, or the most common punishment in the grave, is from what? Is from not cleansing oneself after, or not cleaning oneself after the toilet. So the importance of purity, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, is the key to salat. It is the key to salat. And salat is the key to success in this dunya and in the akhirah. The most important obligation after Tawheed and most repeated obligation after Tawheed is salat. Belief is a lifetime obligation. There's no time where you say, I'm not in belief at the moment. It's a lifetime, a second by second obligation. The most repeated obligation after it is what? Is salat. Is salat. And that's why the reason that we are talking about purification and salat is because a lot of people are ignorant on a lot of matters when it comes to tahara and it comes to salat. and due to the fact that we see a lot of people, youth and even older people, not knowing the specifics of purification and the specifics of salat. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to show you the importance, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he ordered to teach the children salat at what age? What age? 7. The child at the age of 7 has to be taught how to make wudu, how to clean themselves, how to purify themselves, and how to pray at the age of 7. Even though most likely, most commonly, the child is not going to be responsible for their prayer until a later age. But to show that this is something that the training needs to begin for it at a young age. At a young age, the child at the age of 7 should be taught how to begin purifying oneself, how to do wudu, how to perform the salat. And at that age, as the ulama they say, at that age you are able to get the child to have a connection with salat, to love wudu, to love salat. You can get them to have that relationship, that connection at a young age. When they grow a bit older, it becomes harder. When they grow older than that, it becomes harder. So the importance of tahara and purification in Islam, and the purification of oneself in Islam, and there are many things Islam has called to the purification, general purification of the human being. As the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentions in the hadith that from the sunan of the natural instinct, the fitrah, is to clip the fingernails, is to shave the underarms, to shave the pubic hairs, to clean oneself, to make ghusl at least once a week. At least once a week. Ghusl is made after any marital relation. All of this is a what? Is a call to purify oneself. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he used to send the people out to give da'wah, he would tell them to cleanse themselves, to clean themselves, to make themselves presentable, to be like a birthmark, meaning that to stand out to the people. When you're going out and you're preaching Islam, to present oneself in a neat and tidy way, to be clean both physically, and then after that to also purify yourself spiritually, to purify the heart and to purify the soul in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all of this gives to the importance of tahara, gives to the importance of salat, and the perfection of tahara and salat is something that is very important. Now the ulama, when they begin with the chapter of tahara, they begin with what types of water are permissible for one to use when they are making wudu. What types of water is permissible to be used when one is making wudu? The ulama of the four madhahib and the general ulama, they divide water into 4 types. They say that water is of 4 types. You have pure water, pure in itself, and it has the ability to purify. And it's very important to differentiate between the two. Pure in itself, and it has the ability to purify or to lift the small hadath, or to lift the small nullifying of wudu. Because you have waters that are pure in themselves, but you're not allowed to make wudu with them. Or there are liquids that are pure in themselves, but you're not allowed to make wudu with them, which will come to them inshallah. So the first type of water is water that is pure upon itself, and it also has the ability, or the person is able to make wudu or ghusl with that water. And that water is the water, or the natural water, meaning the water that comes from rain, the water that comes from rivers, the water that comes from seas, the water that comes from the ground, from wells. The natural water, or any water in its natural form, has the purifying ability, meaning that the person is able to what? The person is able to purify oneself with that water. Now if something comes and mixes with that water, even though it might be called water, but it has a what? It has a extra characteristic with it. Now water generally has three characteristics. Al-riqqa, meaning that it's not slimy. As-sayalan, it runs and it flows clearly. It doesn't take its time when it's flowing. Al-riqqa was-sayalan, and the color of the water. These are the three main characteristics of water. So if a substance is added to that water and takes away one of these three characteristics, it could remain pure in itself, but you can no longer make wudu with it. You can no longer make wudu with it, even though it might still be running, it might still be thin, but it's no longer clear, or it's no longer considered as what? Purifying water. So the first type of water is tahirun mutahhir, pure and it purifies. Pure in itself and it purifies also. So that is rainwater, water from the sea, water from rivers, water from wells, water from springs, water from the natural water. All of that the person is able to what? Is able to make wudu and to perform ghusl with it. When we say it's pure in itself, it means that it can clean things off the body. When we say it purifies, we mean that you can make wudu or ghusl with it. So when we say it's pure, means that you can clean an impurity of your body with it. When we say it purifies oneself, we mean that you can make wudu or ghusl with it. That's tahir, mutahhir. Tahirun wa mutahhirun. The second type of water is the water that is pure in itself, but doesn't have the ability, or is not the person is not able to make wudu or ghusl with it. Meaning that you can use it to what? To clean clothes. If you have a najasa on you, you can clean it with it, but you can't use it to make wudu. You can't use it to make ghusl. And these are different types of water. The first of them is what we call al-ma'ul musta'mal, water that has been used for wudu or ghusl. So when a person, and this in our days today is not relevant, because whenever we use water, that water goes into the drain and it goes. Back then they used to use water. Water wasn't as easy as it is today, or as facilitated as it is today. So they used to bring water into the house from the outside and they would use it. And as much as they can reuse that water, they would reuse it. So here al-ma' al-musta'mal is if a person has a bucket under them and they are making wudu. The water that goes into that bucket cannot be used again for wudu. That's what we call al-ma' al-musta'mal, water that has already been used. Because once the water is used to lift wudu or ghusl, that characteristic in the water cannot be used again. And that water cannot be used again to make wudu or to make ghusl with it. That's why Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, do not make ghusl in a place that the water, or in water that is still. Why? Because you can't use that water again to make ghusl or to make wudu with it again. You make ghusl or you make wudu, that water can't be used again to make wudu or to make ghusl. But you can use it to what? To purify your body with it. Meaning if you have a najasa, you can take that najasa off with it. The second type is a water that has been used or that has been added to it a characteristic, so it has changed. Like rose water, flower water, or any water that has an added characteristic to it. Ma'ul wardi wa ma'ul zahri. Rose water and flower water, they can be used to what? To purify the body. or to purify clothes. If there's a najasa on the clothes or the najasa on the body, it can be used. But can you use it to make wudu? You can't use it to make wudu. Water that has been mixed with a substance to the extent, and that substance is pure, to the extent that it has lost the what? It has lost the running characteristic, meaning that it's no longer flowing. It's become thick. That is a water that also can no longer be used for tahara, can no longer be used to lift a tahara. And there's other types, or there's other things that fall under that characteristic. The third type of water is al-ma'ul najis, water that is impure. Water that is impure. What makes water impure? What makes water impure? When an impurity falls or is placed in that water. If there's water, does any amount of water become impure, or there's different amounts? The ulama have said that there's water that is small, al-ma'ul qalil wal-ma'ul kathir. A small amount of water and a large amount of water. The ulama have differed, however, in what is limit, or what is the limit of al-ma'ul kathir, the large amount of water. Al-ma'ul qalil, a small amount like a bottle or a cup or a small bucket. If one drop of najasa falls into it, khalas, it can no longer be used for purifying the body or for making wudu or ghusl. Even if it's what? Even if it's one dot of najasa. If it's one dot of najasa, it can no longer be purified. But what's considered as a large amount of water? The ulama of the Hanafi madhab have said that the large amount of water is the water that fills up the area of 10 arms length by 10 arm length. 10 arms length by 10 arms length, and is deep enough that if you put your hands to bring water out, you don't touch the bottom of it. That's the Hanafi madhab. The Hanafi madhab is it has to be 10 by 10, and if you put your hands in it, it doesn't touch the bottom of the water. Doesn't touch the bottom of the water. The Shafi'i madhab, they have said that al-ma'ul kathir ma balagha al-qullatayn, that the large amount of water is the water that has reached the amount of al-qullatayn. What's al-qullatayn? Al-qulla is the large jar that they used to use to fill with it water and to fill with it different liquids. If the water amount is 2 of that, then it's no longer considered as what? As najis. Approximately, about between 150 liters, give or take. 150 liters, give or take. If a najasa falls in it, then it's not considered as najis. It's not considered as impure. When we say a water is impure, it means that that water can no longer be used for what? For purification. Whether it's removing purification of the body or the clothes, or it's making wudu or ghusl. So here we have a small amount of water, any impurity falls in it, it what? It loses the characteristic of purification. If it's a large amount of water, or it's running water, then that water will not hold the najasa, except if one of 3 characteristics are changed. Except if it changes the characteristic of the water, meaning the smell of impurity appears. Meaning that there's so much impurity that was put in it that the smell of it has changed. That the taste of it has changed. Some of the ulama, they say that one of the purposes behind doing the mouth and the nose and then doing the face is to see the taste, the smell, and the look of and the texture of the color or the look of the water. So the mouth, you put it in your mouth, you can taste. In your nose, you can smell it. When you grab it to wash your face, you can what? You can see it. So if one of those characteristics have changed, no matter how much the water is, then the water is considered impure. The water is considered impure. So this is something that when the person has a najasa, and it falls into the small amount of water, that water is considered impure. Meaning that the person is not able to use it to purify oneself, whether cleaning the body or making wudu with it. If the water is a large amount of water, then that water is considered pure as long as the smell of it doesn't change, the taste of it doesn't change, the texture of it doesn't change. طعمه ولونه وريحه. The taste, the texture, the color, and the smell. If one of those change, then no matter how much, no matter how large amount of water it is, it becomes what? It becomes impure. It becomes najis. And we'll go through the different types of najasa at its time. Now the Ahnaf, they have said that there is a fourth type of water. And that type of water is water that is pure in itself and has the ability to purify, but it's makruh to use in the existence of pure water. And that is the water that the cat has drank from, or an animal that is, the meat of it is edible, has drinking from. So here, is the cat edible in Islam? Is the cat edible? It is not. Why isn't it edible? What's the dalil? Because it eats meat. Any animal that eats meat, the water of it, or that which it drinks from, is impure, or its saliva is impure. The cat is given an exception. The cat, out of all animals that are animals of prey, is given an exception. Why? Because it is Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he says that إِنَّهَا مِنَ الطَّوَّافِينَ عَلَيْكُمْ وَالطَّوَّافَاتِ. That the cat itself, it circulates, it's in the house. It comes and it goes and it drinks from here, it eats from here, does this here, it purifies itself and it cleans itself. So the cat has been given an exception. So the sur is the water left over that the cat has drinking from. That is considered as pure. But it is makruh to use it in the presence of pure water. Or at the end of the day, no one's going to go to the bowl of water that the cat has and make it to wudu, and they have 5 taps at home. We're going to go use that water. The cat's not going to drink it, so might as well use it. No, but the reason the ulama use it is because, as we said before, the easiness and the facilitation of water in the houses wasn't as it is today. And I mentioned the hadith sahih, when the Prophet ﷺ, he went out on an expedition with 40 to 50 Sahaba, and they camped in an area and they had run out of water for drinking and had run out of water completely. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he sent out Ali radiallahu anhu and a number of companions to seek water. So as they are searching for water, they come across a lady, a female, riding on her camel, her horse, whatever it was, and she had 2 jars of water with her, on the camel, on the horse, on whatever she was riding. So Ali radiallahu anhu and the companions, they stop her and they say to her, is there any water that is near? She says, there's no water around. They said to her, where did you get your water from? Or how far did you travel to obtain your water? She said, the travel of 1 day and night, 24 hours there and 24 hours back, traveling to get water. And she had to go leave her family, and she was the female. She had to go leave the family, travel a day to where the water is, fill up the water, and then travel back to fill up the water. That's to show how some of the people back then had difficulty in water. The first people to actually have water reach the houses was mentioned that it was the Muslimin. The Muslimin were the first people to have water running to houses. Back in Egypt, one of the shows that they were doing a comparison. Back in Egypt, in the time of the Mamalik and in the time of the Islam in Egypt, they had water flowing from the Nile River to the houses of the Muslimin. And then he gave a comparison today. He went to one of the areas in Cairo, and there is one tap for every 50 houses. Meaning that every 50 houses have to share one tap. All their water, there's no taps in any of the houses, they have to share from one tap. So when we mention some of these things, it's important to understand that their time was different in these matters, in the existence, in the facilitation of water, than it is today. But nevertheless, the Nabi ﷺ, he said about the cat, إِنَّهَا لَيْسَتْ بِنَجِسَةٍ إِنَّهَا مِنَ الطَّوَّافِينَ عَلَيْكُمْ وَالطَّوَّافَاتِ. She is not, or the cat is not impure. Meaning if the cat licks the person, or the saliva of the cat comes on the person, then it's not considered as what? As impurity. It is not considered as impurity, it is pure. It is pure. So that's the 4 types. There's a 5th type of water that the ulama have mentioned that there is doubt surrounding its purity, which is the water that a horse has drank from. A horse has drank from. The reason that they mention this is because the Nabi ﷺ, or generally the horse, is a praised animal and a guarded animal. It's mentioned in the Qur'an, and it's a mechanism of jihad, and it's an honored animal that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored in the Qur'an. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he mentioned in the hadith, Al-khaylu ma'qudun binawasiha al-khayr. Al-khayl ma'qudun binawasiha al-khayr. Al-khayl, horses, the good is tied upon their heads. Ma'qudun binawasiha al-khayr. That the horses, it is tied upon them the goodness. Al-khayr. So the water that a horse has drinking from, that is something that there is doubt around its purity and its non-purity, that the ulama have differed with regards to the purity of the leftover water from a horse. The leftover water from a horse. And the horse is more sort of applicable today than the cat, because the horses, they usually use large tubs of water. So can the person walk up to it in the presence of other water and just make wudu from it? Most people these days won't even do it. Most people these days, they'll go, they see the water from the horse, they'll walk away and they'll go make wudu somewhere else. But that's due to the easiness of water today. The easiness of water today. So there are a couple of different types of purification that will end with today. As we said, that there's pure water, which is the water of the rain, hail, from the rivers, from the sea. Why is the sea? What's the proof that seawater is purified, or that seawater purifies as well? And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he was asked by one of the companions. He said, "O Rasulullah, we travel for long distances in water sometimes, and the water that we drink sometimes is scarce. The water that we drink becomes, the amount of it decreases. So are we able to use the water of the sea? Or if we come across a corpse that is dead in the sea, are we able to eat from it?" So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, meaning if there's something floating on the water, they come across a fish, it's floating on the water, can you eat it? Any other animal, if it's a corpse, it's haram. Al-mayta is from the prohibited meats to eat, is the dead meat or the corpse that has been dead. With the sea, there's an exception. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said to them about the sea, هو الطهور ماؤه الحل ميتته. The sea, its water is pure, Its water is pure, and it's an exception. Why? Because the taste of it is different. The taste of it is salty. It's seawater. But it remains pure. Why? Because of the large amount of water that is there. So it remains what? It remains pure. So هو الحل الطهور ماؤه. The water of the sea is pure. You can make wudu from it, you can make ghusl from it, whatever you want. And also it is what? الحل ميتته. The corpse of the water, the floating fish, يعني, it is permissible to what? Permissible to eat. Permissible to eat. Now, another story with regards to the corpse of the water, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, as mentioned by Abu Ubaidah ibn Jarrah, who was one of the leaders of an expedition sent by the Prophet ﷺ, and they had ran out of food. Imagine, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, that an expedition and a small group of troops sent out by the Prophet ﷺ, they are sent out and they ran out of food. They ran out of food. The first couple of days they were fine, and then the food started to become less and less. So Abu Ubaidah, he gathered all the food together, all the tamar that they had, and they used to live off tamar, yani. Gathered all the tamar, all the dates that they had, and he distributed it amongst the troops, the soldiers. So they said that the first week or the first couple of days, each of us had 2 dates a day. That's what they lived on. Each of us had 2 dates a day. We'll have one in the morning and one in the evening. So then the amount became less. So we were given 1 date a day. We'll eat half of it in the morning and half of it in the evening, and then we'll suck on the seed of it. He said, and then the dates became even less. He said every 2 of us were sharing 1 date. Every 2 of us were sharing 1 date. He'll eat half and the other one will eat half. He said, and then we'll share the seed. Then we'll share the seed. Meaning one of them would put it in their mouth for half the day, the other one put it in his mouth for the rest of the half. For the next half of the day. And then we said we ran out of water. We ran out of dates and we ran out of food. He said we came across a large fish. In the hadith it says a fish. A large corpse that was washed up on to the shore. And it was a whale. So he said we sat and we ate from that for a month. Big whale washed up on the shore. He said we sat and we ate from it for 1 entire month. He said when we left, they put off the bones, the rib bones, and the horse walked under it. The horse with the rider walked under it. That's how big it was. That's how big the whale it was. So the Abu Ubaidah and the Sahaba, they said, but what if this was not halal? It's a corpse. Al-mayta hurimat alaykum al-maytatu wad-damu. Al-mayta, the corpse, is haram. So he said, we'll take some of it for the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So when they returned to Medina, they returned to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, they told him the story, and they said that we have meat from it. He said, bring the meat, and he ate from it. He ate from that meat, and he said that it is halal. That it is halal. You hear many stories when you read the seerah, when you go through the seerah of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, that you understand how tough they did it and how tough they had it. And then how, subhanAllah, after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, how the situation changed drastically. The dunya opened up on them, the wealth opened up on them. And a lot of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, not that it changed them, but they indulged in it. Meaning they used it and they took it. And a lot of the companions, they didn't. A lot of the companions, they didn't. Abu Ubaidah ibn Jarrah was from the companions who didn't. And to Umar radiallahu anhu, when he saw how he was living, he said, Ya Abu Ubaidah, inna dunya ghayyaratna walam tughayyirka. He said to Umar, he said to Abu Ubaidah when he entered into his house and he saw that all he had was a cup, a plate, and a bowl which was dry bread in it and pieces of dry bread in it. And then he looked around, he started crying. Umar started crying of how Abu Ubaidah was living. Abu Ubaidah said, this is sufficient enough to get me to my destination. This is sufficient enough to get me to my destination. That's when Umar said, oh Abu Ubaidah, the dunya changed us, but it didn't change you. The dunya changed us, but it didn't change you. So the types of water are pure water, water that is pure in itself, but you can't make wudu with it, which is water that has been previously used for wudu or ghusl, water that is water in itself or given the name of water, but it has a different characteristics like the water, rose water or flower water or any other type of water, that one of the characteristics has changed, but it has remained pure. Meaning that you can clean the clothes with it, you can clean the najasa of the body with it, and so forth. Then you have the impure water. Impure water, if a drop of impurity falls into a small amount, it becomes impure. You can't use it for purification and you can't use it for cleaning. That's al-ma'un najis. If it's a large amount of water, 100 to 150 liters of water and more, if a najasa falls in it and it doesn't change the three characteristics of taste, smell and color, then it remains pure. Then it remains pure. And then you have the fourth and the fifth. The fourth being the water that is pure and can purify, but it is makruh, it is disliked to use it in the presence of other water, which is the water of the cat, that which the cat has drinking from. And fifthly, that which there is doubt in its purity or its ability to purify, which is the water that the horse has drinking from, that there's doubt in it. So if there's no water that the person can use, then they can use that water. They can use that water. And that's the different types of water in a very summarized way to use when it comes to purification. And inshallah ta'ala, next week we will mention what is considered as purity or what is considered as impure by the ulama. There's certain things that they are agreed upon, and there's certain things that there's ikhtilaf, that there's difference of opinion whether it's impure or it's not impure. We'll mention them inshallah ta'ala next week, next Friday. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Every Muslim dreams to be up in Jannah, 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 Jannah. A pious person's destiny. Inshallah in Jannah, Jannah, Jannah.